"Never enter my office, Evelyn. It's my sacred space." Those words, spoken with a gentle but firm smile, were among the few inflexible rules my husband Robert established during our 30 years of marriage. I always respected his boundaries, even when curiosity consumed me, as I watched him walk to that annex behind our property with an expression I could never quite decipher. What I didn't know was that behind that forbidden door lay a secret so profound it would redefine everything I thought I knew about love, family, and the man I'd shared my life with. Robert is gone now, taken by a sudden heart attack that neither I nor the doctors could have predicted. And what I discovered in that forbidden office would shatter my world completely. But that wasn't even the beginning. After 30 years of marriage, I sat widowed at 55 in the mahogany-paneled office of Robert's lawyer, Mr. Winters. The man shuffled through papers with practiced precision while I struggled with an emptiness where certainty used to live. "Mrs. Patterson, there's one more item." He slid a small velvet box across his polished desk. Inside was an old brass key and a sealed envelope with my name in Robert's careful handwriting. "What is this?" The key felt surprisingly heavy in my palm. "Your husband purchased an office building 3 years ago. According to his instructions, you were only to be informed after his death." Mr. Winters adjusted his glasses. "The deed has been transferred to your name." "An office building?" Robert didn't own any property outside our modest suburban home. We lived comfortably but simply. 10-year-old cars, state park vacations, careful budgeting. It's called Patterson Professional Center. Apparently, he converted most of it for personal use. The office. The place forbidden to me for 3 decades. The place that made his gentle face harden whenever I asked about his long hours away. But what Mr. Winters said next changed everything. "Mrs. Patterson, the property has become quite valuable. There have been multiple inquiries from development companies offering substantial sums." "Valuable?" My voice cracked. "It's just an office building. It's in a rapidly developing commercial district. Your husband refused several offers that would have made you both wealthy." Questions multiplied faster than I could process them. How had Robert afforded a building? Where had the money come from? Why keep it secret from the woman who balanced our checkbook? I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. "My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, I've left you too soon. There's so much I should have told you, but I couldn't face it. The building is yours now. I've spent 3 years transforming it into something beautiful, something worthy of you. I know I made you promise never to go there. I'm releasing you from that promise. In the main office, there's a laptop. The password is the date we met, followed by your maiden name. I love you, kitten, more than you'll ever know. Robert." Even from beyond the grave, Robert was full of surprises. "I need to see this place," I said. "Of course. But I should warn you, Robert's business partners have contested the will. They claim he wasn't mentally competent when he purchased the property. That's ridiculous. Robert was the most methodical person I knew. Even so, they've filed legal objections. Given the property's value, this could become complicated." What I didn't know then was that those business partners had secrets of their own. Dark secrets that Robert had been documenting for years. 2 days later, I stood before an impressive glass and steel structure marked Patterson Professional Center. This wasn't some rundown space. This was premium commercial property in one of Seattle's most desirable districts. The key turned smoothly. As I walked through the marble lobby, my footsteps echoed secrets I wasn't ready to hear. The elevator hummed softly, carrying me to the 3rd floor where another key opened a door marked Private. My hands shook as I inserted the final key. The lock clicked, the door swung open, and I stepped into my husband's secret world. What I saw made me gasp and grab the doorframe for support. Nothing could have prepared me for this. The space opened into a large, bright apartment with exposed beams and floor-to-ceiling windows. But it wasn't the architecture that stole my breath. It was a perfect replica of our first home. Every detail was exact. The faded blue sofa we'd bought used, complete with the burn mark where Robert had dropped a cigarette. The dining table where we'd eaten instant noodles, dreaming of better days. Even the floral curtains I'd sewn by hand from fabric remnants. Photographs covered the walls. Us as a young couple, smiling with the confidence of people who believed love conquered everything. But there was something that didn't belong in our memories. In the bedroom sat a small, single bed with a cartoon character comforter. Toys lined white shelves, puzzles, books, stuffed animals, all showing gentle use. Baby clothes hung in the closet. A wooden crib, obviously well-loved, bore marks of time and care. Then I saw it, framed like a diploma. Samuel Robert Patterson, born March 15, 1995. My world collapsed. Robert had a son I never knew existed. With shaking hands, I opened drawers. Samuel's school reports showed steady progress and glowing teacher comments. Children's drawings signed, "For Daddy," in careful letters. Photos of a dark-haired boy with gentle eyes growing up without me knowing. Letters from a woman named Lisa detailed doctor appointments, school events, milestones I'd never heard about. But what destroyed me completely was Robert's diary, left open to the last entry. Evelyn can never know about Samuel. Not because I don't love her. I love her more than life itself. But Samuel has Down syndrome. And when Lisa told me about the pregnancy 28 years ago, I was young, cowardly, and selfish. I abandoned them. Now I'm trying to make amends. Samuel is a grown man who works at a bakery. He's kind, pure, and forgiving in ways I don't deserve. He's forgiven me, but how can I ask Evelyn to forgive 30 years of lies? I sank into our old armchair, crushed by 3 decades of deception. Every Wednesday afternoon when Robert claimed to work late. Every Sunday morning when he left for client meetings. He was here, with his son. This apartment was their sanctuary, a place where Robert could be the father he should have been from the beginning, without judgment or explanations. I thought about the flour sometimes on his clothes, from Samuel's bakery, the unfamiliar lullabies he'd hum, how he'd grown more gentle and patient in recent years. He'd been learning to be a father. As I processed this revelation, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Someone else had a key. I was about to meet the son my husband had hidden for 30 years. Through the window, I watched a silver sedan arrive. 2 people emerged, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a man in his late 20s with Down syndrome, holding yellow flowers and smiling with heartbreaking innocence. "You must be Evelyn," the woman said gently in the lobby. "Robert talked about you constantly. Samuel wanted to meet you." "Daddy said you make the best cookies," Samuel said with sweet clarity. "He said you're the most beautiful woman in the world and have the kindest heart. I'm Lisa, and this is Samuel." Robert was supposed to have lunch with Samuel on Sunday. When he didn't show up, Samuel worried. He's never missed a Sunday lunch in 3 years. I studied Samuel. He had Robert's dark hair and strong jaw, but his eyes held unique gentleness. Tall like his father, but softer, with an openness that made me want to protect him immediately. "Is Daddy sick?" Samuel asked, his brow furrowed with pure concern. "He never misses our Sunday lunch. We always have grilled cheese and tomato soup, then work on puzzles." My throat tightened. "Oh, Samuel, I'm so sorry. Daddy had to go to heaven." Samuel's face crumpled. He began crying with unguarded grief, the flowers falling as he covered his face. Lisa comforted him, and I reached out too, this stranger who was somehow family. "He loved you so much," I whispered, surprising myself with the truth. I could see Robert's love in every corner of this carefully crafted space. Over the next hour, Lisa shared their story, how she and Robert had dated briefly in college, how she'd discovered her pregnancy after he'd moved across the country for work, how she'd tried contacting him, but he'd made clear he wasn't ready for fatherhood. "I raised Samuel alone for 25 years, she said without bitterness. "He's the light of my life, but 3 years ago, Robert found us. He'd hired a private investigator. Why then?" Lisa smiled sadly. "He said he'd been diagnosed with a heart condition. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but it made him realize he was running out of time to make things right. So Robert had known. Instead of preparing me for his death, he'd spent his remaining years trying to be the father Samuel deserved. Samuel works at Morrison's Bakery downtown, Lisa continued proudly. He's their best cake decorator. Customers specifically request him because his designs are so joyful. Robert was incredibly proud. I make birthday cakes, Samuel said, wiping his eyes. Daddy said I make people happy on their special days. He said that's the most important job in the world. You do, I said, meaning every word. That's a wonderful gift. Robert visited twice weekly, Wednesday afternoons and Sunday mornings. He'd bring Samuel here. They'd cook together, watch movies, work puzzles. Robert was teaching Samuel to read better, helping with writing. This apartment wasn't just a replica of our first home. It was Robert's attempt to give Samuel the childhood he'd missed, the father-son moments stolen by his youthful cowardice. Can I show you something? Samuel asked shyly. He led me to a corner where a small desk held dozens of drawings, pictures of him and Robert fishing, playing catch, reading together. Each signed, Me and Daddy. He's been working hard on his writing, Lisa said softly. Robert bought special pencils and paper, spent hours helping him form letters. I picked up a drawing showing two figures under stars. Me and Daddy look at stars, Samuel had written. Robert loved astronomy, I said, remembering his telescope and nighttime sky-gazing. He taught me about the Big Dipper, Samuel said proudly, and Orion. Daddy said Orion watches over people, especially those far from home. As Samuel talked about his father, I felt unexpected emotions, not just anger or betrayal, but strange pride mixed with profound sadness. Robert had made a terrible mistake as a young man, but spent his final years correcting it. He'd loved Samuel purely, completely, expecting nothing except the chance to be the father he should have been. But our peaceful moment was about to shatter. Car doors slammed outside. Through the window, I saw two men in expensive suits striding toward the building with the confidence of people who owned the world. Who are they? Lisa asked, moving protectively closer to Samuel. I recognized them from Robert's funeral, Marcus and David Patterson, Robert's business partners. Men who'd always made me uncomfortable with calculating eyes and false smiles. They were about to try destroying everything Robert had built for his son. Marcus and David entered like conquering generals, Italian leather shoes clicking against marble with the rhythm of men never denied anything. They carried briefcases worth more than most monthly salaries and wore watches that could fund Samuel's care for years. Mrs. Patterson, Marcus said with funeral director sympathy, we're so sorry for your loss. We've been trying to reach you. What are you doing here? I asked, stepping protectively in front of Samuel. We're here about Robert's situation, David said, scanning the apartment with disgust. We've filed papers to have his will declared invalid. Invalid? The word came out sharper than intended. Why? Marcus pulled out a thick legal folder. Robert wasn't mentally competent when he made these arrangements. The evidence is overwhelming. He was wasting company assets on charity cases. Samuel isn't a charity case, I said, anger rising. He's Robert's son. Allegedly, David sneered. Even if true, Robert had no business using company resources to support his mistakes. Lisa stepped forward, face flushed with righteous anger. Robert never used company money. Every penny came from his own savings. With what money? Marcus laughed coldly. Robert's salary couldn't have afforded this building, renovations, ongoing expenses. He had to have embezzled funds. That's not true, I protested, but doubt crept in like poison. How had Robert afforded all this? We have forensic accountants reviewing the books, David said with winner's satisfaction. We'll prove Robert was stealing to fund his guilty conscience. But their worst accusation was yet to come. Furthermore, Marcus continued with prepared speech tone. We have evidence Robert was being manipulated. A man with Down syndrome and his opportunistic mother taking advantage of an aging man's confusion. Samuel began crying again, not understanding the words, but sensing hostility. Lisa held him protectively, her own eyes filling with rage and helplessness. How dare you, I said, voice shaking with powerful emotion. Nothing personal, David shrugged as if he'd destroyed lives before without remorse. But we can't let Robert's mental decline destroy the company. The building, the trust fund he set up, all needs returning to business shareholders. What trust fund? I asked, drowning in revelations. Marcus smiled coldly, enjoying his information advantage. Oh, you didn't know? Robert set up a substantial trust fund for the boy, money rightfully belonging to company shareholders. Ground shifted beneath me. How many secrets had Robert kept? We're prepared to offer a settlement, David said, producing another document. You keep the house and life insurance. We get the building and assets acquired through questionable means. And Samuel? Samuel will be fine, Marcus said dismissively. There are excellent state facilities for people like him, over my dead body. Mrs. Patterson, be reasonable. You can't possibly want responsibility for caring for a disabled adult who isn't even related to you. But I was related to Samuel. Not by blood, but by something stronger. Robert's love, the family he'd tried building in secret, the legacy he'd left me to protect. Get out, I said quietly, voice carrying unexpected steel. Excuse me? I said. Get out. This building belongs to me, and you're not welcome. Marcus and David exchanged glances, confidence wavering. This isn't over, Mrs. Patterson. We'll return with a court order to remove the boy for his own protection. After they left, the apartment felt contaminated. Lisa, Samuel, and I sat in stunned silence, our sanctuary now feeling like a target. What are we going to do? Lisa asked, voice small and frightened. I don't know, I admitted, but determination grew inside me like flame. But I won't let them destroy what Robert built. I won't let them hurt Samuel. What I didn't know was that Robert had anticipated this moment. Somewhere in this building, he'd left me weapons to fight back. When I found them, Marcus and David would discover they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay staring at the hotel ceiling, thinking about their accusations, the mysterious money, the trust fund I'd never heard of. Robert wasn't a thief. There had to be more to this story. The next morning, I returned alone. Lisa had taken Samuel home while I figured out our next move. Exploring the apartment more thoroughly, I noticed something I'd missed. In the bedroom corner, partially hidden behind Samuel's toy chest, was a small door. It looked like a closet, but when opened, revealed stairs leading to a basement level not shown on any building plans. Heart pounding, I descended into Robert's creation below. What I found changed everything I thought I knew about my husband's final years. It was a command center that would impress military strategists. Walls lined with filing cabinets, computers, bulletin boards covered with photographs, documents, surveillance reports. Multiple monitors showed security camera feeds, city maps marked with locations and dates. Timelines stretched across walls, documenting years of activity. Every piece of evidence was about Marcus and David Patterson. I sat at Robert's desk, hands shaking as I opened the first file. Bank records, email printouts, recorded phone conversation transcripts. The evidence was damning. Marcus and David hadn't just been Robert's partners. They'd been systematically stealing from clients for over a decade. Skimming from construction projects, inflating invoices, hiding assets in offshore accounts. Using the company as their personal bank while Robert worked honestly, never suspecting his partners were criminals. But that wasn't the worst part. Another file showed they'd been planning to force Robert out entirely, spreading rumors about his mental competence, forging documents to make him look incompetent, setting him up to take the fall for their crimes. Robert had known. He'd been investigating for months, collecting evidence, preparing for the fight of his life. Then I found the recording that changed everything. A conversation between Marcus and David, recorded 2 weeks before Robert's death. Their voices were clear, intentions unmistakable, casual cruelty breathtaking. The old man's getting suspicious, Marcus said irritably. He's asking too many questions about the Morrison account. We need to move faster, David replied. If he figures out what we've been doing. He won't, and even if he does, who'll believe him? We've planted enough evidence to make him look incompetent. What about the building he bought? And that retarded kid he's supporting? Perfect ammunition. We'll use it to prove he's lost his mind. No rational person would waste money on a mongoloid. I had to stop the recording. Their casual cruelty, the way they discussed Samuel as less than human, made me physically sick, but I forced myself to continue. The beauty is, we can use his guilt against him, Marcus continued. He's so ashamed of abandoning the kid that he'll do anything to make up for it. We just convince everyone his judgment is compromised. And if that doesn't work, we'll have him declared mentally incompetent. I've already talked to a psychiatrist who'll testify Robert's behavior is consistent with early-stage dementia. In Robert's deepest desk drawer, I found a sealed envelope marked, "For Evelyn, open only if they come for Samuel." The letter inside was longer, written with urgent intensity. "My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, Marcus and David have made their move. I've been expecting it. What you found is just the beginning. They've been stealing for years, but more than that, they've been destroying lives with casual cruelty. The Morrison account they mentioned? A charity fund for disabled adults. Money donated by families trusting us to build group homes and support facilities. They stole over $2 million, meant for people like Samuel. Marcus has 3 children he's never acknowledged or supported. He forced their mothers to sign NDAs and threatened legal action if they contacted him. One woman lost her house without child support. Another dropped out of college to work 2 jobs supporting her daughter. David abandoned his wife and 2 children in Oregon, changed his name, moved to California to avoid child support. His ex-wife lost her house, had to move in with her parents. His children grew up believing their father was dead because it was easier than explaining he'd chosen to disappear. They want to destroy Samuel because he represents everything they've run from. Responsibility, love, sacrifice. They can't stand that I chose to support my son when they abandoned theirs. The building was purchased with money I saved over 30 years, plus a loan against my life insurance. Every penny was legitimate. The trust fund comes from the same source. I've documented everything. But Evelyn, there's something else. Something I should have told you years ago. I'm not just Samuel's father. I'm also the father of Marcus's oldest son. 29 years ago, before I met you, I had a brief relationship with Jennifer. She got pregnant, and I offered to marry her and support the child. But she was also seeing Marcus, and when the baby was born, she chose him for his money and prospects. Marcus knew the child might not be his, but didn't care as long as Jennifer stayed quiet. When the boy was 3, Marcus secretly had a paternity test done. When he discovered the child wasn't his, he abandoned them both without explanation. That child is now 26. His name is Michael, and he's been searching for his real father for years. I've been supporting him financially like I supported Samuel, but never told him the truth because I feared disrupting his life. But if Marcus and David are threatening Samuel, it's time for all truth to come out. In the safe behind the bookshelf, combination is your birthday. You'll find DNA test results, financial records, and contact information for Michael, Jennifer, David's ex-wife in Oregon, and the mothers of Marcus's other children. Use it all, Evelyn. Destroy them before they destroy our family. I love you, and I'm sorry for all the secrets. But everything I did was to protect the people I loved. Robert. I spent hours in that basement office, reading files, listening to recordings. Robert hadn't just been collecting evidence. He'd been building a case to expose decades of fraud, abandonment, and cruelty. Now it was up to me to finish what he'd started. The next morning, Marcus and David returned with enough legal firepower to intimidate a small country. 3 attorneys in $1,000 suits, a court-appointed evaluator with clipboard and skeptical expression, a social worker who'd apparently already decided Samuel was incompetent. "Mrs. Patterson," Marcus said with skin-crawling false sympathy, "we're here to conduct the court-ordered evaluation of the property and the alleged beneficiary." Samuel clung to Lisa's hand, frightened by the crowd of suit-wearing strangers who looked at him like a problem to solve rather than a person to respect. "Before we begin," I said, pulling out a thick folder containing copies of everything from Robert's war room, "there are documents you should see." "Mrs. Patterson," one lawyer interrupted, This evaluation is about your husband's mental competence, not— It's about exactly that, I said firmly, voice carrying strength I didn't know I possessed. It's about who was really mentally competent and who was manipulating whom. I handed the first documents to the court evaluator, watching her eyebrows rise as she scanned bank records and financial statements. These show systematic embezzlement from Patterson Construction over 5 years. The perpetrators are Marcus and David Patterson. That's ridiculous, David sputtered, color draining from his face. I handed over the second set, including recorded conversation transcripts. These are recorded conversations between Marcus and David discussing their crimes, including their plan to frame my husband. The evaluator's expression grew serious as she read. Where did you get these? My husband was more competent than any of us realized, I said, feeling pride for the man who'd protected his family from beyond the grave. He'd been investigating his partners for months. He knew they were stealing and planning to destroy him. But that's not all. I pulled out DNA test results, watching Marcus go white as he recognized the implications. Marcus, you've claimed Robert was wasting money on charity cases. But what about your own children? The ones you abandoned when you discovered they weren't biologically yours? Marcus went pale, confident demeanor cracking. You don't know what you're talking about. Michael Patterson, born 1995, Jennifer Walsh's son. You raised him for 3 years, then abandoned him when paternity tests revealed he wasn't yours. But you never told Jennifer who the real father was, did you? I handed the DNA results to the evaluator, feeling truth's power flowing through me. The real father was my husband, Robert. Michael is Samuel's half-brother. Unlike you, Robert took responsibility for his son despite past mistakes. The room fell silent except for Samuel's quiet breathing. He looked confused by the tension, but Lisa squeezed his hand reassuringly. And David, I continued, turning to the other partner with card-holding satisfaction. Let's discuss your ex-wife Sarah and your 2 children in Oregon. The ones you abandoned when you changed your name and moved to California. David's lawyer tried interrupting, but I continued, voice growing stronger with each revelation. You want to discuss mental competence? Wasting money on unworthy causes? My husband spent his final years making amends for past mistakes. You've spent decades running from responsibilities and destroying lives. I pulled out the final document, Robert's sealed letter that would end this fight. But there's one more thing. My husband left this letter to be opened only if you threatened Samuel. I broke the seal and read aloud, voice carrying across the room like judgment. To Marcus and David, if you're hearing this, you've made the mistake I expected. You've threatened my son Samuel, thinking you could use his disability against him. But Samuel isn't the vulnerable one here. You are. I have evidence of every crime you've committed, every life you've destroyed, every child you've abandoned. I have recordings, documents, witnesses, and I've ensured that if anything happens to Samuel or his trust fund, all of it goes to the FBI, IRS, and every news outlet in the state. But more than that, I've found your other victims. The mothers you silenced with threats and NDAs, the children you abandoned, the clients you stole from, they're all ready to testify against you. You wanted to destroy Samuel because you thought he was weak. But Samuel has something you'll never have. People who love him unconditionally. People who will fight for him. People who will never abandon him like you abandoned your own children. Samuel is not your victim. You are his gift, because through him, the world will finally see who you really are. The court evaluator looked up, expression grim and professional. Mr. Marcus Patterson, Mr. David Patterson, you need to contact your attorneys immediately. These allegations warrant criminal investigation. But we're not done, I said, feeling justice's momentum. Because there's one more person who needs to meet his family. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized from Robert's files. Michael? This is Evelyn Patterson. I think it's time you met your father's family. 20 minutes later, a young man entered the building. He had Robert's dark hair and strong jaw, but also Samuel's gentle eyes and open smile. He moved with careful grace of someone who'd navigated the world without a father's guidance, but his face lit up seeing Samuel. Samuel looked up with curiosity, then broke into a transformative grin. "You look like Daddy," he said with simple honesty. Michael knelt to Samuel's level, his own eyes filling with tears. "Hi, Samuel. I'm your brother." In that moment, watching Samuel hug the brother he'd never known he had, I understood what Robert had been trying to tell me. Family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about love, forgiveness, and choosing to show up for each other when it's hard. Marcus and David left in handcuffs that day, their lawyers abandoning them as evidence mounted. Their crimes were exposed in every state newspaper, their victims finally getting deserved justice. But more importantly, Samuel gained a brother, and I gained 2 sons. 6 months later, our house looks completely different. The dining room table that once seated 2 now accommodates 4 most nights, 5 when Michael's girlfriend joins us. Samuel has his own upstairs room, decorated with his artwork and photos with Robert. Walls are covered with his drawings, bright color splashes that capture joy in breathtaking ways. Michael visits every weekend, making up for lost time with the brother he never knew existed. He started a foundation for abandoned children, using settlement money from Marcus and David's conviction. He says it's what Robert would have wanted, turning pain into purpose. Lisa has become my closest friend and the sister I never had. She helps me understand Samuel's needs and moods while I help her navigate the trust fund's legal complexities. We've become a team, 2 women united by love for the same gentle soul. Clara, my daughter, initially struggled with suddenly having 2 half-brothers. But Samuel's pure love and Michael's gentle patience won her over. She now works part-time at Samuel's bakery and is considering special education inspired by his example. The Patterson Professional Center has been transformed into the Samuel Patterson Community Center, providing job training and support services for adults with developmental disabilities. Samuel is our first success story and most enthusiastic ambassador, greeting every new client with the same open-hearted welcome he showed me. Every evening, Samuel helps me set the dinner table. He tells me about his bakery day, shows me decorated cakes, and asks if Daddy would be proud of him. Very proud, I always answer. And it's true. The secret apartment above the community center has become Samuel's art studio. He's discovered painting talent, creating beautiful, simple works that capture emotions in ways professional artists spend years trying to achieve. His paintings hang throughout our house now, reminders that love comes in many forms and beauty can emerge from unexpected places. Sometimes, late at night, I sit in Robert's old chair thinking about the journey that brought us here. The forbidden office that became a sanctuary, the secret that became a celebration, the shame that became a legacy of love. Robert was right about one thing. He couldn't face telling me about Samuel while alive, but in death, he gave me something more precious than any confession could have been. He gave me a family built not on obligation or blood, but on choice, forgiveness, and the radical decision to love without conditions. The office is no longer forbidden. The secrets are no longer hidden. And Samuel, the son Robert thought he had to hide from the world, has become the light guiding our entire family. Marcus and David were sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. Their abandoned children have found each other and formed their own support network. Justice has many faces, but the most beautiful justice is Samuel's laughter echoing through our house every morning. Robert's greatest shame became our greatest gift. His deepest secret became our most treasured truth. And I, Evelyn Patterson, became the guardian of a legacy, proving love is always worth fighting for, no matter how late it comes, no matter how imperfect its beginnings. The forbidden became the celebrated, the hidden became the honored, and a family that began with secrets became a family that thrives on truth. Thank you for listening to our story. If this touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of second chances. Subscribe for more stories of love, redemption, and the families we choose. And remember, it's never too late to make things right. Until next time, this is your storyteller, reminding you that the most beautiful families are often the ones we never saw coming.